A little bit about home inspection, generally speaking, though. It came about in the mid-1980s, primarily as a result of both the real estate industry, the insurance industry, and those two were kind of driving at that. When a house transaction was taking place, they were trying to limit their liability, of course, and they were trying to make a little bit more full disclosure of the condition of the house at the time of the transaction. So it's been around since about the 1980s. Came to Canada in about 87, and Amerispec's been operating in Canada here since 1992. We have franchise operations right across Canada, coast to coast. So this is going to be a little bit about my business, a little bit about the general business, and a little bit too about why a home inspection makes sense when you're doing a home purchase. So first and foremost, what is a home inspection? It's an assessment tool that you would use as actually one of two ways. Either when you're buying a property to have it evaluated prior to firming up your offer, or you could also use it if you're going to sell your house. You could use it as a pre-listing inspection to kind of consider some of the things that might be potentially wrong or defective in your home that you might be, maybe you've lived with them for the last 20 years and not thought about it, but to a new buyer coming in, they might think, hey, that's an issue. So then it becomes a point of leverage during your negotiation. So it's not always a bad idea to have a pre-inspection done. But a home inspection is basically, it's a visual and operational examination of the home on the property the date is inspected. And it's very important that you understand the visual part, okay? There's a guy on TV, you might have heard of him, named Mike Holmes. He can take apart a home and have it back in 22 minutes plus commercials. We cannot do that, okay? We're guests in the person's home. We cannot touch or destroy or cause any damage. We have to respect that part of the property, okay? So sometimes when you hear somebody say, well, gee, I don't know how the inspector missed that, well, that's because you had the ability to lift up the floorboard when you moved in and find things, okay? We can't do that. We do the best we can with the tools and things that are available to us, but understand it's a visual inspection only, so sometimes it has limitations. What a home inspection is not, okay? It's not an appraisal. We're not there to give an evaluation on the price of the property or the value of it, okay? It's not a warranty. It's basically an inspection, as I mentioned, on the date that we do the inspection, but again, we don't know what's happened to that point, and we certainly can't predict what's happened past that point, okay? And it's kind of an interesting thing because you'll do an inspection in January, well then come April when you move in, what was a dry basement could potentially become a wet basement, and you can't always predict that or can't see that, okay? So don't confuse it as a warranty. It is not technically exhaustive. I like to tell people, think of me as your general practitioner. There's different times maybe when I'm inspecting when I'll refer you to a plumbing and heating specialist or an electrician or someone who's a little bit more proficient or has some more qualifications. But it's something that we do that I'm kind of a generalist. I can spot defects in a lot of areas, but I can't necessarily say what the cause or what the repair is, but I can just tell you that something looks defective, okay? Building code compliant. That's quite critical too. A lot of times people will say, well, is that code? And understand two things. Code is the minimum safety level that a house has to be built to. It's the minimum, okay? So if someone says, hey, I'm building to code, well, that's good, you should. The other thing is with building codes, the Ontario Building Code came into place in 1976. So things are grandfathered forward. So if you bought a house built in 92, of course it's going to have more things than were in existence in 1976, but not as much as today. But we're not there as bylaw officers or to enforce that. We might make recommendations, and it's to your benefit to do those upgrades, but we're not there as enforcement. We're not there necessarily to report you to anyone for that, okay? And obviously we can't see through foundations, floors, or walls. We do have a couple of devices that we use in inspection. First and foremost, we use moisture meters, which can kind of detect about an inch into the wall if there's any moisture evident. We also have thermal image cameras. Some people call them infrared. Thermal image won't tell you if there's a potential leak or a problem, but what it does, it measures the difference between the cold and the hot spots. So for instance, we can see if there's insulation voids in the wall, or maybe if there has been a recent past leakage and there's still evidence of some moisture, it'll show up on the camera, okay? But it's really more of a diagnostic tool, not something that's definitive. And of course, we cannot see around areas that are not accessible. Sometimes people do a real good job piling things up around their electrical panel or making sure they fill the closet full, so sometimes we can figure out why they're doing that. But again, if there's some areas that we cannot get into, like crawl spaces that are this big, we have to note that in the report. Okay. Why have a home inspection done? Well, you're spending a lot of money on a large property and you'd like to know the condition of it, or at least as much as you can about the house. So it's obviously an objective evaluation of the condition of the home before you buy it. Typically with home inspection, about 70% of the problems I detect are usually electrical, and they're usually minor to repair, within $1,000 or under, okay? The other part, of course, is sometimes foundations. And again, with foundations, it's kind of interesting because a lot of times, I always tell people, think of it this way. Your house is like having a diaper on a baby. It's sitting in water. You have to manage the water away from the diaper, otherwise it could find a way in. So the easy ways to do that are make sure your downspouts and your eaves troughs take the water away from the foundation. Make sure there's no low areas around the grading. That goes probably 90% of the way to having a drier basement. Okay? The other thing I like to do is I like to spend time, particularly with first-time buyers, but pretty much with every inspection, I like to help educate people about the home. It's not just, we're not just there to say, well, that's good, that's bad, that's good. It's understand what it does, because the house is basically a system. All the parts relate and work together to form a system and an envelope, okay? So I do like to show people about why there is a sump pump, what the function is, where does it go, what does it do, how do you hear those things, you know? So we do a lot of our inspection as education. And of course, with the items we review, it can be kind of interesting because some people say, well, you're just doing this and this. Well, there's about 500 or 600 items we look at and operate or test or inspect. And they can be everything from the structure, the visible exterior. We'll have a look in the attic, crawl spaces, basements. Crawl spaces are real fun. They're real fun. Of course, all of the exterior, the trim, the eaves troughs, downspouts and things, roofing, plumbing and heating, electrical, heating, air conditioning, interiors, especially the venting. Okay, you want to make sure that your venting is to the exterior, insulation, and built-in appliances. Again, the real crux of it is to try to age or determine the age or remaining useful life of those big ticket items that you have to replace going forward. Okay. And of course, if you're having a home inspection done on your house, make sure the inspector can access all areas of the house. Make sure you clear things away, okay, so we have access. If your attic hatch is located in a spot that's difficult, it's good to have that out of the way, because again, when we take the hatch off, sometimes things fall down. It's also a good idea to make sure your home inspector is less than 300 pounds. Make sure all of your filters are clear, okay? Look, you know, if it looks as though you're maintaining the house, it goes a long way to preparing your house for sale, okay? Areas under the sinks. And again, if you have any recent repairs done on the house, any warranties on your furnaces, roofs, things like that, make sure you have that available to the seller, because those are usually transferable. And again, that goes a long way in making the process of your transaction a lot smoother. Home inspection takes about 3 hours, so understand that, you know, there's going to be at least the home inspector, a realtor, and the buyer there in your home for about 2.5 to 3 hours. And we don't judge on paint colors or Justin Bieber posters either. So, things to ask your home inspector when you're choosing one, okay? Do they follow industry standards of practice? Myself, I'm a member of the Ontario and the Canadian Association of Home Inspectors. We do have a standards of practice that we inspect to, and that's our standard. So ask if they have that, if they have a standard of practice. Can you see a sample report? There's a lot of different ones out there. Some come in a digital format. Some come as a series of forms that are check marks. Okay. Myself, I prefer to use one that's it's actually it comes as a hard copy written report, not written, but you know, typed out, and it comes with photographs. I print it off right on site. That way, while we're in the house and the buyer's still there, I can still go through and show the buyer anything or point out areas of concern, because a lot of times, just to get the report and have the pictures, you can't always relate what it was or where you saw it. So people tend to be more visual. So I always make a point of walking them through and showing them things. Okay? Are they a full-time home inspection company? Myself, I am. I don't sell other stuff or do other stuff on the side. That's certainly a conflict of interest in our business if I was to go and spot all kinds of repairs and defects and say, by the way, I can fix that for you. Like, you know, you got to be careful of that. How much will inspection cost? They can range. Our typical fee for a single family home is $350 for a house under 2,000 square feet. If the house is a little older or a little bit larger, we might sometimes add a little bit more onto that. Okay. What's included with the report? What are you getting? Okay. Our reports come in a binder with some maintenance tips, a repair guide, and some other useful information, certainly some information for your insurance company. What other services are offered? Sometimes what you try to do with a home inspection is if you can line up all your other inspectors, if you have a swimming pool that you want done, if you have an on-site or a septic system, if you have that done, or if there's a fireplace to be inspected. So the more services I can offer, it certainly helps with that time frame and that closing frame. Okay? Are you allowed to attend? Some inspectors don't like you to attend, others encourage it, others actually have you tag along. Okay, I kind of do a blend of both, but no, you're certainly welcome to attend. After all, you're buying the report and you're paying for the house. What will be inspected? When will the report be ready? So if you have any particular areas that you have concerns about or something you don't understand, then it's worth having that looked at. I did an inspection yesterday for a lady who was quite concerned about the in-floor radiant heating. So again, I took the time to walk her through that and operate it and show her all of that. And when will the report be ready? Usually with real estate transactions, the times are fairly tight. If you put an offer in today, usually you'll have 7 to 10 days to have your offer completed, and that includes your financing, insurance, your home inspection. So we're usually the last guy to get the call. So we don't normally get too many days notice, which is fine. We're okay with that. But that's why I always try to make sure I have the report in the buyer's hands when they leave the house. Okay? That way they can make their decision a lot faster. And of course, does your home inspector carry general liability and errors and omissions insurance? Sad to say, but probably only 1/3 of home inspectors do carry that. What this is general liability is, say for instance, I was at the home inspection and I put my ladder through the front window. Then the buyer's not on the hook. That's my insurance. I pick that up. I'm covered. Errors and omissions, that's something that's critical too. And most businesses have it, but again, with home inspection, some don't. Errors and omissions is essentially this, that say for instance I made a statement about the 100 amp service in the house and it turned out to be 60, then that would cost the buyer some money to upgrade that panel. That's where my insurance would kick in if I missed it. Okay. Just a little bit about Amerispec. We are owned by ServiceMaster. ServiceMaster is really more of a disaster restoration and cleanup and environmental cleaning and janitorial cleaning company, but they own all these other brands, okay? Mary Maids is in the Niagara Peninsula as well. You might recognize some of the others as well. And about myself locally, of course I serve the Niagara region. I own the franchise rights for the region, but I also will sometimes go into Hamilton Wentworth if there's a particular service that I offer that area doesn't have available. I'm a member of the Canadian and Ontario Home Inspectors Associations, as I mentioned. Carson Dunlop, they're kind of a real leader in the home inspection industry in terms of their education. So I had to complete that before I got my certification. And of course I had probably 2 months intensive training down in the head office in Memphis, where they have actually taken an airplane hangar and built a house inside of it. And that's where we spend all of our days, just going over all the various systems and components. I also picked up last year, I picked up my licensing through the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing to do on-site or waste septic inspections, okay? So remember, if you're booking a septic inspection, not before 9, please. And of course, I have 30 years of experience in construction and related products. I've been in that area of the business all my life. Again, we have quick turnaround times. We're flexible appointment schedules. Friendly, cordial, professional, good-looking, well-dressed. Humble, yeah, that's right, yeah. And again, we have all of these things. That's a little bit more about Amerispec. That's our report. It's a pretty impressive report. And there's my contact information. Thank you very much.